Welcome back. So like we discussed in the last section, what we have done so far is built our SOAP to RFC scenario. And after we built our SOAP to RFC scenario, we were planning to launch it with SOAP UI and test the scenario with SOAP UI. Remember what we had done, just to recap, we had generated the SOAP WSDL, and the way to do that, or the WSDL file, was to open up your sender agreement. We went to sender agreement and display WSDL, and that gave us the WSDL along with the URL. So what we will now be doing is taking this URL and then using this within SOAP UIs. SOAP UI is a SOAP testing tool, is a web service testing tool. So we will be using SOAP UI in this exercise and in the next exercise as well. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead, create a new project. I'm going to file and saying new SOAP project. Once I give the new SOAP project, I'm going to call it SOAP to RFC _00, and it asks me for a WSDL. You have two options. You can always give the WSDL URL, or you can give the raw WSDL as well. So if you remember what we had done, if I go to my desktop, what we had done was we had also saved this WSDL file. Yes, so we had saved the WSDL file that is displayed here by copying this WSDL file, or by saying, you could have also done save and writing it to your file system and have persisting that. That is one way, or you can also use the URL directly. So what I'm going to be doing is, if you see, I've taken the URL and I'm going to be using the URL. Let the sample request be selected. Let's go ahead. It's going to ask me for my username because it's now going to connect to PI and download the request structure and the response structure, basically download the WSDL. So I'm going to give my username and password. Very nice. I wanted to show this error. If you get an error like this, what this means is that the username and the password that you entered is incorrect, and your SOAP UI could not resolve it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's try to make sure that the username password that we enter is correct. So I'm going to go in, make sure I get the right URL. I've gotten the right URL. I'm going to go here. Now I'm going to make sure I enter my right username. Let me just make sure my username is okay. System status user PI 15. Yes, so I'm entering the username, and now I'm going to enter my password. Perfect. Now you see I did not get any error. My WSDL was loaded, and out here you see there is something that's called request one that has been created, right? So what is this request one? This request one is nothing but the request structure of the BAPI. Remember, we had in our service interface, we had used the BAPI's request structure as if I go to my service interface, my service interface was a synchronous service interface that had the BAPI's request structure as its input message and the BAPI's response structure as its response message. So what you see here is nothing but the BAPI's request structure. There are a lot of all of these optional fields in the request, so I'm going to just go ahead and remove all of this. Okay, let's just go ahead and quickly, yeah, I'm removing all these optional elements. The only field that is mandatory is the username field. Okay, so now what is this RFC going to do? It's going to connect to my ECC environment and check if this user exists or not. Okay, I'm now going to trigger this call. All I've done, if you see, is just pretty print this XML by right clicking and formatting. So all I've done is in the request provided the username, and I'm going to go ahead and execute it. We are going to expect an error, and we will see why that error comes, right? So I've executed it and I've gotten an error. And what is the error? That it's a HTML error that says error unauthorized, and it's coming from our PI server. If you see here, it also tells you what is the error code. The error code is HTTP 401 unauthorized. You can also go into the raw. This is the XML view. You can go into the raw view and you see HTTP 401 unauthorized. And this has been returned by our PI server, and the reason is because we have not provided a username password for this request to go to. So let's go to the authentication tab. Out here, click on authentication. It says no authorization. Say add new authorization. give basic and give your PI's username and the password. Okay, so go to authorization, make sure that the authorization type is basic, give your user PI user and your PI password, and go ahead and say execute now. In this case, now if everything goes well, we should get a response. Okay, I'm going to the XML view. Perfect, we got a response, and within the response, if you see, what you've gotten is the BAPI's response with the user details, with exactly what we wanted, with the user information. So what happened? PI made a call to from SAP PI made a call to PI. PI made the call to SAP to the RFC backend using an RFC adapter, and whatever was the response, PI returned back to the SAP client, which is in this case SAP PI. And what is the URL to which SAP PI made the call? This is the URL. Remember, the URL that we initially had is the WSDL URL, and within the WSDL URL, SAP PI uses this URL. Sorry, I didn't copy it right. I'll just go here, Control A, Control C, and this is what is called our SAP endpoint URL. Okay, so this is the URL to which SAP PI makes the call to PI. Let's just do remove the word wrap, and I'm going to maximize it. So what does this contain? This is my PI server, this is my port, this is a static XI SAP adapter message servlet, and then if you come here, you see the section sender service is equal to the BS file system 00. Let's open our sender agreement, right? So what it does is it takes the sender party, sender service, sender interface, and sender interface namespace, and that is exactly what you will see here: BS file system 00, BS file system 00, right? And then if I go here, the receiver party and the receiver service is blank. And why is it blank? Because if you look at my sender agreement, there is nothing in the receiver party and the receiver service, right? And then I go to my interface. If you see the interface, it's SIOS SOAP to RFC underscore 00, SIOS SOAP to RFC 00. Interface namespace, this is my namespace, and this is my namespace. So basically, the SAP adapter is going to form a URL that conforms to these details that you see here, and that is a part of the WSDL. And I made a call and I got the response. Let's go into SXMB Moni and see what happened, right? I go into SXMB underscore Moni. How do I monitor? I go to monitor for processed XML messages and I say execute. And out here, this is the message. There's an additional message which we can ignore. This is the message that got triggered. This is my request message and this is my response message. And in the request message, if you see, the sender is my file system 00. This is my namespace. This is my sender interface. It goes to EH5 client 800, my SAP system. It makes the BAPI call, and that's the BAPI details that you see. And then SAP responds back. So this is the response message, EH5 client 800. And this is, if you see, if I expand this, this is again the sender interface is the BAPI, the receiver interface is what you see here, and so on, right? And if I keep scrolling down to the right, if you see, this is the request message and this is the response message. And the response message, there's a column called request message ID where you can see the response message ID. So let's go ahead now and double click on the request message, or you can also click on the response message. Click on one of those two messages. So now you see this is the response that came back from SAP, right? Now I'm going back and I'm opening the request message. Now when I open the request message, you see this is the request, okay? And I go to the technical routing, payload, display, documents in window 1, and I see the and then I click on the and out here, if you see, you can also see in the request message the response message. All I have to do is double click on the response and I can see the response payload and so on. So this is basically what happens in the PI world, where a SOAP message has come into PI from SAP PI. PI has made the call to SAP RFC and the response has come back. Quickly, the last thing that we will now be checking is the communication channel monitor, right? So let's go into monitoring, let's go into adapter engine, and let's go into, how do I go into monitoring? I go to my monitoring homepage. Once I go to my monitoring homepage, now I want to check the status of my communication channels. Where do the communication channels run? They run on the adapter engine, and hence I'm clicking the adapter engine. Now that I'm in the adapter engine, the link I'm going to go into for checking the status of my communication channel is my communication channel monitor. Right now here I'm going to go into the advanced tab, or before what I can also do is let's just get the name of my communication channel. This is the name of my sender communication channel, so I'm going to go here, give the name of my sender communication channel and say go. Okay, so now you see this was the request that came in, and this request is what we saw out there. What I can always do is click on this hyperlink here, and I would be able to see the entire audit information of this particular message. This might take some time to load, so we will go back. Okay, it's come up. Okay, and if you see here for this message ID, I first see the request message and then I see the response message as well. So I go into the message log, and out here in the message log you can see that the request came in. In my SOAP UI I had used the user PI sound 15, so I could see that. And then if I keep going down, you can keep coming down here, you can see, hey, this was the request and this is the URL. It made a call to the RFC adapter. Let's just copy the RFC adapter's name and put it into a notepad. Okay, and then you see the RFC made a call to the BAPI user get detail. Okay, the response came back and the response was successfully transmitted to PI. Okay, and the response was returned back to the SOAP adapter. So why do you see two messages here? The reason you see two messages here is because this was a message that came from PI to it went into the integration engine, and this is the response that came back from the integration engine. Okay, basically a PI message comes in. This is the message that came in, and once the message came in, it went to the integration engine, and then the integration engine sent it back to the adapter engine, and that's why the receiver component is filled up in the next interface. Okay, now let's go to the receiver RFC adapter. Right, we had copied the receiver RFC adapter from the audit log. So now I'm clicking on the receiver RFC adapter, and you see here, you can see the status that it is connected to this particular SAP system. Sorry, you can see the status around which SAP system it is connected to, what is the username, what is the port, and everything. And out here you can also see what was the RFC called to SAP. Okay, so let's now trigger one more call. I'll make a user that does not exist and execute the call. Okay, perfect. And now in this case I got a response, but none of the details is filled, and I get a message that says user does not exist. Now I'm going to refresh my RFC, and now I see I have the next request that just started at 16:01, and this is the RFC response, and this is the logs of the RFC. Now if I go to SXMD Moni, I should see two more messages. This is the latest message that we just triggered. This is the request that came in with the new user ID, and this is the response that we can see with the corresponding response. Okay, so with that we have built our first scenario with this, which is our file to our SOAP to RFC scenario. Now let's just do one last thing. I'm now going to go into my SOAP receiver adapter. I'm going to induce an error. So what am I going to do to induce an error? I'm now going to make my username as an incorrect user. Right? So when I make my username as an incorrect user, I should get an error back because now when PI is going to send the message to ECC, the login to ECC is going to fail because the user is invalid. So what did I do? I went into my communication channel, I went into my RFC receiver adapter, and in my RFC receiver adapter I changed my username, and after I changed my username, I'll repeat it. I changed my username to a dummy username. Let's do that. I saved my communication channel, and I went into communication channel activate. So there are different ways in which we can activate a communication channel. You can go into change list, you can go here and you can right click and activate here, or you can go here, you can go to this communication channel tab and say select activate, and you can always activate it from here. So now I've activated my communication channel, and now that the communication channel is active, let's just again use a valid username, right, and see what happens. Perfect. You see now you got an error message, and the error message that came is the RFC adapter has an error because the error logon has failed. Now if I go to the communication channel monitor, I'm going to say go, and you see there's an error, and the error is that the name or the password is incorrect. Why? Because we obviously made a change. Now let's go to SXMB Moni, hit refresh. Now you see there is a red message that tells that the message has failed. This is my request message. I double click on the response message and I get the error message, RFC error logon failure. So with this you can always understand that something's gone wrong, that this is failed, so the PI message has failed, and so you go into the communication channel, you find out what's the communication channel and look at it. Okay, now what if you see this message in PI's monitoring and you wanted to use this monitoring to understand, you wanted to use this SXMB Moni monitoring to understand what was the channel used, right? I obviously know the channel name, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close all this, and let's say now I want the channel name, right? How do I get the channel name? How do I know what is the channel with which PI made the call? So now I'm going to go into my error message, make sure you are in the error message, and go to this tab out here that you see as outbound binding, right? Go to this outbound binding, and out here just keep scrolling down and you should see the name of the channel, and here you see service name and channel name. This is the name of our communication channel. So let's go ahead, copy this communication channel, and now go to the configuration and monitoring home, go to adapter engine and go to communication channel monitor, because this is where you can see the communication channel details. Enter the channel, and out here now you can see that, hey, yes, there's something wrong, the RFC adapter logon has failed. So then what do? You go here, let's say everything's closed, right? How do I locate this communication channel? I use the find option. I use this find option. I can go to communication channel. In the find option you can search for any object. I'm searching for communication channel, so I've selected this. I've given the name of the communication channel. I'm double clicking and I can open my communication channel. So I go ahead, now I revert my change. I'm going to put a valid user and I'm going to save my username, and then I'm going to go to communication channel and I'm going to activate my channel. And I've activated the channel, and now that my activate channel is activated, I'm going to re-trigger the call. In this case, now the error should go away and we should get a valid response. Exactly, the error went away because I fixed my issue. Now I go refresh here. This will still show error. The communication channel will still show error because it also shows historical information. It says, hey, in the last 10 minutes there was some kind of error, right? And then I come down here, but I can see that there was a successful message that is green, and this is the historical message that had failed. Now I go to SXMB Moni, I go back, I refresh, and voila, I can see that the message was successful as well. Okay, so with this we come to the end of this session where we had build a SOAP to RFC scenario where the sending system is making a call using a web service or using SOAP, and then PI then makes a call to an SAP backend system as a RFC call. This was the first synchronous interface that we built, and by synchronous interface we mean an interface that where you sent in a request and you got a response back, right? And also what did we do? We used a receiver RFC adapter and we used a sender SOAP adapter, and in the sender SOAP adapter the quality of service was best effort. The reason that the quality of service was best effort is because this is a synchronous interface. Always remember, synchronous equal to quality of service as best effort. Alright, then we configured our usual objects: sender agreement, receiver determination, interface determination, receiver agreement, and after that, using the sender agreement, you generate the WSDL, you say display WSDL. Let's do one more thing. When we do a display WSDL, we always have the option of saving. Let's go to desktop, training, and let's just say save this WSDL. Okay, I've saved the WSDL locally. Now that I've saved the WSDL, let's create a new project, right? So here I'm going to delete this project, remove, and I'm going to save the SAP PI project quickly. Okay, save the SAP PI project. Now I'm going to create a new SOAP project, and I'll say SOAP to RFC underscore new underscore 00. Now in the initial WSDL, previously what we had done, we had used the WSDL URL, the WSDL URL, that we got from the sender agreement. Now instead of the WSDL URL, in some cases you might want to share the WSDL with your external partners, and they might not have the authorization to download the WSDL. So what you can always do is also give them the raw WSDL file. So this is the WSDL file, SIOS SOAP to RFC WSDL file that we just downloaded, and I'm opening this and I'm saying create. Okay, so now if you see, again the request was created quickly like we did. I'm going to delete all the optional fields. Only the username is mandatory, so everything that's optional is going to go away to make my request easy. So I'm just calling all the way down, deleting it, deleting my request and giving my user ID, user PI 15, executing the call. The call is failing again because, and the error says unauthorized, and this is because, like we saw previously, I have not entered my username password. So I'm going to go in, add new authorization, basic, and give my username password. Now that I have given my username password, I am again submitting my call, and I got my response back. Let's go ahead and save the SOAP project as well. I say Control S. It's going to ask me for the name of the project. I give the name of the project and I'm done. Okay, with this we come to the end of this exercise. What we've done also was downloaded the WSDL locally and built a SOAP to RFC scenario. In the next session we will be looking at a HTTP to RFC scenario, HTTP to SOAP scenario, and I shall see you there soon. Bye bye.